Hello friends, in this video, I will tell you some interesting, and at the same time scary stories related to hotels and motels. If you like the video, you can like and subscribe to the channel. Thus, you will help a lot to promote the channel. Thank you. In 2021 in New York City, a man named John was feeling bored and restless. He had a stable but dull job as an accountant at a large firm, and he lived in a small apartment in a crowded neighborhood. He had no family or friends to speak of, and he spent most of his time watching TV or surfing the internet. He felt like he needed a change of scenery, something to spice up his life. He decided to check into a hotel for a weekend just to get away from his routine. He booked a room at a cheap motel near Times Square, hoping to experience some of the excitement and glamour of the city. He packed a small suitcase with some clothes and essentials and took a taxi to the motel. He checked in at the reception desk, where he was greeted by a friendly but bored clerk. He paid for his room in cash and received a key card for room 217. He took the elevator to the second floor and walked down the dimly lit hallway to his room. He opened the door and entered. The room was small and shabby, with faded wallpaper and stained carpet. There was a double bed with a thin blanket, a dresser with a TV on top, a nightstand with a lamp, and a bathroom with a shower. John shrugged and threw his suitcase on the bed. He didn't expect much from this place. He just wanted to have some fun. He turned on the TV and flipped through the channels, looking for something interesting to watch. He found nothing but news, sports, and reality shows. He sighed and turned off the TV. He decided to go out for a walk, maybe find a bar or a club to hang out in. He grabbed his wallet and phone and left the room. He locked the door behind him, but he didn't notice that he left it slightly ajar. He walked down the hallway to the elevator, unaware that someone was watching him from the shadows. The watcher was a woman named Lisa Jones. She was a drug addict and a thief who had been living on the streets for months. She had been wandering around the motel, looking for an opportunity to steal something valuable. She saw John leave his room and noticed that he didn't close the door properly. She saw her chance. She waited until John was out of sight. Then she quickly ran to his room. She pushed the door open and entered. She looked around the room, searching for anything worth taking. She saw the suitcase on the bed and opened it. She found some clothes, toiletries, and a laptop computer. She smiled and grabbed the laptop. She also took some cash from John's wallet, which he had left on the dresser. She stuffed the laptop and the money into her backpack, which she had slung over her shoulder. She was about to leave the room when she heard footsteps in the hallway. She panicked and hid behind the door. It was John returning from his walk. He had changed his mind about going out and decided to order some pizza instead. He had his phone in his hand, ready to call the nearest pizza place. He reached his room and pushed the door open. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. He didn't see Lisa hiding behind it. He walked over to the bed and put his phone on the nightstand. He noticed that his suitcase was open and that some of his things were missing. He frowned and looked around the room. He saw his laptop and his wallet on the floor near the dresser. They had fallen out of Lisa's backpack when she hid behind the door. He realized that someone had broken into his room and tried to rob him. He felt angry and scared at the same time. He picked up his laptop and his wallet and checked if they were damaged or missing anything. They seemed fine. He wondered who had done this and where they were now. He turned around and faced the door. He saw Lisa standing there, holding a knife in her hand. She had been waiting for him to notice her presence, hoping that he would be too shocked or scared to react. She was wrong. John screamed and lunged at her, grabbing the knife hand and trying to push it away. Lisa fought back, trying to stab him with the knife. They struggled for a few seconds until John managed to knock the knife out of Lisa's hand. John began to lose consciousness from the loss of blood. He fell down without signs of life. The girl ran off with his belongings. John was never saved. The girl could not be found. In the year 2023 in New York City, there lived a man named David. David was a software engineer who worked for a large tech company. He had a small apartment in Brooklyn, where he lived alone. His apartment was modest but comfortable, with a sofa, a TV, a desk, and a bed. He had a few plants and posters to decorate the walls. He didn't have many friends or hobbies, and he spent most of his time working or browsing the internet. David was bored with his life. He felt like he was stuck in a rut, doing the same things every day. He wanted to travel and see new places, but he didn't have enough money or time. He also wanted to meet someone special, but he was too shy and awkward to approach women. He often wondered if there was more to life than his routine. One day, he received an email from his boss. It said that he had to go to Chicago for a week to attend a conference and meet some clients. David was surprised and excited. He had never been to Chicago before, and he thought it would be a good opportunity to experience something different. He packed his suitcase with his laptop, clothes, and some personal items. He booked a flight and a hotel room online. He hoped that this trip would be fun and memorable. He arrived at the airport and boarded the plane. He sat next to a friendly woman named Lisa, who was also going to Chicago for work. They chatted for a while and exchanged phone numbers. David felt a spark of attraction and hoped to see her again. He smiled and relaxed as the plane took off. He landed in Chicago and took a taxi to his hotel. It was a cheap motel near the convention center, but it looked clean and decent. He checked in and went to his room. It was small and simple, with a bed, a dresser, a TV, and a bathroom. He unpacked his suitcase and put his valuables in the safe. He turned on the TV and watched some news. He felt tired from the flight and decided to take a nap. He woke up after an hour and checked his phone. He had a text message from Lisa. She asked him if he wanted to join her for dinner at a nearby restaurant. David replied yes and got ready. He put on his jacket and left his room. He locked the door behind him and walked down the hall. He met Lisa at the lobby and they walked together to the restaurant. It was a cozy Italian place with dim lighting and soft music. They sat at a table near the window and ordered some pasta and wine. They talked about their work, their hobbies, their families, and their dreams. David felt comfortable and happy with Lisa. She was smart, funny, kind, and beautiful. He felt like he had known her for years. They finished their meal and decided to go for a walk in the park across the street. They held hands and strolled along the paths under the stars. They stopped at a bench and kissed passionately. David felt butterflies in his stomach and warmth in his heart. He asked her if she wanted to come back to his hotel room with him. She nodded yes and smiled. They walked back to the motel and went up to his room. He opened the door with his key card and let her in. He closed the door behind him and turned on the light. He froze in horror. There was someone else in his room. It was a man wearing a ski mask and gloves. He was holding a large duffel bag that contained David's laptop, clothes, wallet, phone, watch, and other valuables. He had broken into the safe and emptied it. The man saw David and Lisa enter the room and panicked. He dropped the bag and ran towards them. David reacted quickly and pushed Lisa behind him to protect her. He looked around for something to defend themselves with, but he didn't see anything useful nearby. The intruder reached them and pulled out a knife. He lunged at David, who dodged the attack and grabbed the man's wrist. They struggled for a moment, but David managed to disarm him and throw him to the ground. He held the man down with his foot and called the front desk to notify the police. The police arrived shortly and arrested the intruder. They recovered David's stolen items and thanked him for his bravery. David and Lisa were shaken but unharmed. They hugged each other and vowed to stay in touch. The rest of David's trip to Chicago was a blur. He spent most of his time giving statements to the police and talking to his company's security team. He missed most of the conference and didn't have any fun. He couldn't wait to go back home and forget about the whole ordeal. When he returned to New York, he felt relieved to be back in his familiar surroundings. He went back to his routine of work and browsing the internet, but he couldn't shake off the memory of the break-in. He realized that he had taken his safety for granted and that he needed to be more vigilant and prepared. He also realized that life could be unpredictable and that he needed to seize every opportunity to make it worthwhile. In the year 2023, there was a man named Daniel living in Seattle, Washington. Daniel was a software engineer working for a large technology company. He had a comfortable but boring life. He lived in a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood where he spent most of his time alone. He had few friends and no romantic hobbies. He rarely went out or did anything interesting. He was stuck in a routine. Daniel always dreamed of traveling the world and seeing new places, but he never had the courage or the money to do it. He felt like he was missing out on life, but he didn't know how to change that. He was unhappy, but he didn't know how to be happy. One day, he decided to do things differently. He rented a room at a cheap motel near the airport, packed a small bag, and left his apartment without telling anyone. He had no plan, no purpose. Daniel just wanted to get out of his routine and see what would happen. He checked into the motel and went to his room. It was a small and shabby room with a bed, a TV, a dresser, and a bathroom. The walls were thin and the carpet was stained. The window faced the parking lot. It wasn't a nice place, but Daniel didn't care. He felt free and full of adventure. Daniel turned on the TV and flipped through the channels. He didn't find anything interesting to watch. He decided to go out and explore his surroundings, put on his jacket, and left his room. He walked around the motel and saw other guests. They looked like travelers, truckers, or people who had nowhere else to go. They didn't pay much attention to him. He felt he didn't belong here either. He crossed the street and went into a convenience store. He bought some snacks and drinks and looked through magazines and newspapers. He saw an article about a nuclear fusion experiment in South Korea that was hotter than the sun. He wondered what this meant for the future of energy. He left the store and walked further down the road. He saw several restaurants, bars, stores, and gas stations. Cars, buses, cabs, and airplanes passed by. He felt like he was in another world. Daniel decided to go back to the motel and get some rest. He hoped something interesting would happen to him soon. He went back to his room and closed the door behind him. He put his snacks and drinks on the dresser and lay down on the bed. He turned off the television and closed his eyes. He quickly fell asleep. During the night, he woke up to the sound of broken glass. When he opened his eyes, he saw a man standing beside his bed, looking at him menacingly with a knife in his hand. "Who are you? What do you want?" asked Daniel in fear. "Shut up. Give me your money and valuables," said the man. Daniel began to fight back and kicked the man in the stomach. The man stumbled back, dropping the knife. Daniel quickly grabbed the weapon and held it up, ready to defend himself. The man looked at him, surprised and frightened. He then turned around and ran out of the room, leaving Daniel alone. Daniel sat on the bed, shaking with fear and adrenaline. He couldn't believe what had just happened. He had never been in a situation like this before. He realized that his impulsive decision to leave his apartment had led him to this dangerous situation. He also realized that he didn't want to go back to his boring routine, but he needed to find a way to be more cautious and prepared. He decided to stay at the motel for a few more days and explore the area during the day. He would also research safety tips for travelers and learn basic self-defense techniques. Daniel's unexpected encounter had opened his eyes to the risks and rewards of stepping out of his comfort zone. He had a new appreciation for the excitement and uncertainty of life. He was determined to continue exploring and learning, but he would do it more responsibly from now on. In the year 2023, in Los Angeles, California, there was a man named John who lived a dull and monotonous life. He worked as an accountant at a small firm downtown, where he spent most of his days crunching numbers and filing reports. He had no friends or family to speak of, and his only hobby was watching TV in his tiny apartment. He rarely traveled or did anything exciting, and he felt like he was wasting his life away. One day, he decided to do something different. He booked a room at a cheap motel near the airport, hoping to get away from his routine for a while. He packed a small suitcase with some clothes and toiletries and took a taxi to the motel. He checked in at the reception, where he was greeted by a bored-looking clerk who handed him the key to room 12. He walked down the hallway looking for his room. He found it at the end of the corridor next to room 11. He unlocked the door and entered his room. It was small and shabby, with a stained carpet, a sagging bed, and a cracked TV. He didn't mind though, he just wanted to relax and forget about his problems for a while. He put his suitcase on the floor and lay down on the bed. He turned on the TV and flipped through the channels, looking for something interesting to watch. He soon fell asleep, lulled by the sound of the TV and the hum of the air conditioner. He didn't know how long he slept, but he was awakened by a loud noise from the room next door. He heard someone banging on the wall, followed by muffled voices. He got up from the bed and walked over to the wall. He pressed his ear against it, trying to hear what was going on. He heard two men talking in low tones. They sounded angry and nervous. "Come on, hurry up. We don't have much time," one of them said. "I'm trying. This damn safe won't open," the other one said. "What do you mean it won't open? You said you knew how to crack it." "I do. I just need a few more minutes." "We don't have a few more minutes. The owner could be back any minute. And what if someone hears us?" "Relax. No one will hear us. This place is practically empty, and besides, we have guns. If anyone tries to stop us, we'll shoot them." John felt a surge of fear as he realized that he was listening to two robbers trying to open the safe in room 11. He wondered what was in the safe that was so valuable. Maybe it was money or jewels. Whatever it was, he knew he had to do something. He couldn't just sit there and let them get away with it. He had to call the police. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911. But as he was about to speak, he accidentally dropped something on the floor. It made a loud noise that echoed through the room. The robbers immediately stopped talking, and John heard them walking towards the door. His heart pounded in his chest as he realized he had been discovered. He quickly turned off the TV and ran to the bathroom. He locked the door and climbed into the bathtub, pulling the shower curtain close. He could hear the robbers entering his room and searching for him. "Where did he go?" one of them asked. "I don't know, but he couldn't have gone far," the other replied. They searched the room, opening drawers and closets, but they didn't find him. After a few minutes, they gave up and left the room, closing the door behind them. John waited for a few more minutes, just to be sure they were gone. Then he climbed out of the bathtub and opened the bathroom door. He looked around the room, but it was empty. He breathed a sigh of relief and grabbed his phone. He called the police and told them everything that had happened. The police arrived a few minutes later, and John gave them a description of the robbers. They searched the motel and found them hiding in another room. They were arrested and taken into custody. John was praised for his bravery and thanked for helping the police catch the robbers. After that night, John's life changed. He became a local hero and was interviewed by several news outlets. He made new friends and even started dating. He realized that he didn't have to live a dull and monotonous life, and that there were adventures waiting for him if he was willing to take a chance. In 2016 in New York City, David was a successful lawyer who lived in a luxurious apartment in Manhattan. He had a busy and stressful life, working long hours and dealing with demanding clients. He rarely had time for himself or his family, who lived in another state. He was always on the phone or on his laptop, trying to solve problems and close deals. One day, he decided to take a break and go on a vacation. He booked a flight to Hawaii and a room at a 5-star hotel. He packed his bags and left his apartment, looking forward to relaxing and enjoying the sun and the sea. He felt excited and happy for the first time in a long time. He arrived at the hotel and checked in. He was given the key to his room, which was on the 10th floor. He took the elevator and walked to his room. He opened the door and entered. He was amazed by the view from the window. He could see the beach, the palm trees, and the blue sky. He smiled and put his bags on the bed. He decided to take a shower and change his clothes before going out. He went to the bathroom and turned on the faucet. He stripped off his clothes and stepped into the shower. He felt the warm water on his skin and sighed with pleasure. He closed his eyes and let go of his worries. He stayed in the shower for about 15 minutes, enjoying every moment. He turned off the faucet and grabbed a towel. He dried himself off and wrapped the towel around his waist. He walked out of the bathroom and into the bedroom. He gasped when he saw that his room had been ransacked. His bags had been opened and his clothes had been thrown around. His laptop, his phone, his wallet, and his passport had been stolen. He felt a surge of anger and fear. He looked around and saw that the door was open. He ran to it and tried to close it, but it was too late. A woman entered the room, holding a gun in her hand. She pointed it at him and ordered him to give her any valuables he had left. David didn't know what to do. He felt paralyzed and helpless. The woman stepped closer and demanded his watch. David slowly took off his watch and handed it to her. As she was about to leave, David's instinct kicked in. He picked up his suitcase and threw it at her. The woman dodged it and tried to shoot him, but David managed to run past her and out of the room. He ran down the corridor looking for help. However, the robber caught up to him and a scuffle broke out. The robber fell and hit his head on the floor, losing consciousness. David saw this as an opportunity to escape and ran out of the room. He made his way to the lobby and called the police. As he was on the phone, he heard footsteps in the corridor and saw a man running away. It was the perpetrator's accomplice. When the police arrived, they found the unconscious robber and arrested the accomplice. They recovered David's stolen items and returned them to him. David was shaken but grateful to be alive. He decided to cut his vacation short and return home to be with his family. He realized that life was too short to be spent only working, and that he needed to make more time for the people he loved. In 2017 in Seattle, Washington, Daniel Lee was a successful software engineer who worked for a large tech company. He had a comfortable life, but not a very exciting one. He rarely traveled or socialized, preferring to spend his free time on his hobbies, such as gaming and reading. He had few friends and no romantic relationships. He was content with his routine, but sometimes he wondered if there was more to life than his job and his apartment. One day, he received an email from his boss asking him to attend a conference in San Francisco. It was an important event for the company, and Daniel was one of the speakers. He agreed to go even though he hated public speaking and flying. He packed his bags and boarded the plane, hoping that everything would go smoothly. He arrived at the hotel late at night, exhausted from the flight and the traffic. He checked in and went to his room on the 5th floor. He took a shower and changed into his pajamas. He decided to order some room service and watch some TV before going to bed. He picked up the phone and dialed the number. As he waited for his food, he heard a knock on the door. He thought it was strange since he hadn't ordered anything yet. He got up and looked through the peephole. He saw a man wearing a hotel uniform and holding a tray. He assumed it was a mistake and opened the door. "Hello, I have your order here," the man said with a smile. "I didn't order anything," Daniel said, confused. The man's smile turned into a sneer. He pushed the tray into Daniel's chest, knocking him back into the room. He slammed the door behind him and locked it. He dropped the tray and pulled out a knife from his pocket. "Give me all your money and valuables, or I'll kill you," he shouted. Daniel was shocked and terrified. He tried to reach for his phone, but the man kicked it away. He backed away from the man, looking for a way to escape. The attacker advanced towards him, swinging the knife in a threatening manner. Daniel stumbled and fell to the ground, hitting his head on the edge of the bed. In a split second, he saw his life flashing before his eyes. He thought he was going to die, alone and far from home. But then something snapped inside him. He remembered all the self-defense classes he had taken in college, and he knew he had to fight back. He kicked the man in the groin and punched him in the face. The attacker grunted in pain and stumbled backwards, dropping the knife. Daniel took his chance and ran towards the door, unlocking it with trembling hands. He ran down the hallway, screaming for help. A hotel employee heard his cries and called the police. Within minutes, the hotel was surrounded by squad cars and officers. They searched the building and found the attacker hiding in a stairwell. He was arrested and taken into custody. Daniel was taken to the hospital, where he received stitches for his head wound and treatment for his bruises and cuts. He was shaken but relieved that he had survived. He thanked the police officers and the hotel staff who had helped him. The incident changed his life forever. He realized that he had taken his safety for granted, and that he needed to be more aware of his surroundings. He also realized that he had been living a life of routine and monotony, and that he needed to take more risks and explore new horizons. The attack had been a wake-up call, but it had also been a blessing in disguise. It had shown him that life was precious and unpredictable, and that every moment counted. He had learned to value his life and the lives of others, and to never take them for granted. In the year 2021 in Las Vegas, Nevada, a young man named Alex is staying in a cheap motel near the airport. He had just arrived from his hometown of Boise, Idaho, where he had lived a dull and uneventful life. He had always dreamed of visiting the city of lights and gambling, but he never had enough money or time to do so. He worked as a cashier in a grocery store, and he had no friends or family to keep him company. He felt lonely and dissatisfied with his existence. One day, he decided to take a risk and participate in a raffle. And he won. He got a small fortune. He couldn't believe his luck and decided to quit his job and go to Las Vegas. He wanted to have fun and entertainment, and maybe even meet someone special. He packed his bags and booked a plane ticket to his dream destination. He arrived at the motel late at night, tired and hungry. He checked in and paid for a week's stay in advance. He didn't care about the quality of the room or the service. He just needed a place to sleep and store his stuff. He carried his suitcase to the room, which was on the second floor. He opened the door and entered a small and shabby room. There was a bed, a dresser, a television, a mini fridge, and a bathroom. The walls were stained and peeling, the carpet was dirty and worn, and the air was stale and musty. Alex wasn't paying attention. He was too excited to bother. He tossed the suitcase on the bed and opened it. He pulled out some money and counted it. After paying for the flight and motel, he had $49,000 left. He smiled and thought about what he could do with that money. He decided to take a shower and change before he went to explore the city. He made his way to the bathroom and turned on the faucet and waited for the water to heat up. As he was about to enter the shower, he heard someone knocking on his door. He wrapped a towel around his waist and walked out of the bathroom. He looked through the peephole and saw a man wearing a blue uniform with a name tag that said Bob, The man had a clipboard in one hand and a spray can in the other. "Who is it?" Alex asked. "Hi, I'm Bob from Pest Control." "I need to check your room for insects," the man said. "Pest Control? At this hour?" Alex asked. "Yes, sir. We have a routine inspection every night. It won't take long, I promise," the man said. Alex hesitated for a moment. He didn't like the idea of letting a stranger into his room, especially when he had so much money lying around. But he also didn't want to be rude or suspicious. Maybe it was normal for motels like this to have pest control at night. "Okay, fine. Come in," Alex said. He opened the door and let Bob inside. Bob smiled and thanked him. "Sorry for the inconvenience, sir. I'll be quick," Bob said. He walked into the room and looked around. He saw Alex's suitcase on the bed and pretended not to notice it. "So, where are you from?" Bob asked casually. "Boys," Alex said. "Boys? That's nice. What brings you here?" Bob asked. "I won some money in the lottery," Alex said proudly. "Really? How much?" Bob asked curiously. $50,000, Alex said. "Wow, that's amazing." "Congratulations," Bob said enthusiastically. He moved closer to Alex and pretended to spray some insecticide on the wall behind him. "Thank you," Alex said. "So, what are you going to do with all that money?" Bob asked. "I don't know yet. Maybe gamble some of it, see some shows, buy some new clothes, and just enjoy myself," Alex said. Bob nodded and smiled, but his eyes were scanning the room for any valuable items. He noticed a wad of cash on the dresser and a gold watch on Alex's wrist. He licked his lips and slowly reached for the cash. Suddenly, Alex turned around and saw Bob's hand on the cash. He quickly realized what was happening and tried to grab his money back. "Hey, what are you doing? That's my money," Alex shouted. But Bob was stronger and more aggressive. He pushed Alex and hit him in the face with the spray can. Alex fell to the ground and hit his head on the dresser. He was dizzy and disoriented, but he knew he had to defend himself. He stood up and lunged at Bob, punching him in the stomach. Bob groaned and kicked him in the leg. Alex stumbled and grabbed a lamp from the bedside table. He swung it at Bob's head, but Bob ducked and grabbed Alex's arm. He twisted it and made him drop the lamp. He then grabbed the gold watch and the cash and ran towards the door. Alex was furious and in pain. He chased after Bob and tackled him at the door. He punched him several times and tried to retrieve his belongings. But Bob was too slippery and managed to get up and run away. Alex was left bleeding and bruised, with no money and no watch. He stumbled back into the room and tried to call for help, but his phone was broken. He lay on the bed, defeated and helpless, wondering how he could be so naive and foolish. After a while, the motel manager heard the commotion and called the police. They arrived within minutes and found Alex lying on the bed, still dazed and in shock. They'd asked him what happened, and he told them everything. They took his statement and went looking for Bob. Luckily, they'd found him hiding in a nearby alley, still clutching the stolen money and watch. They'd arrested him and took him to jail. Alex was relieved and grateful, but also angry and sad. He had lost his trust in people and his faith in his own judgment. He realized that money could bring not only joy and freedom, but also danger and deceit. He decided to be more careful and cautious in the future, and to appreciate the simple things in life, like his health, his safety, and his sanity. In 2015, in Los Angeles, California, David Miller had a busy and stressful life. He worked long hours at his firm, dealing with complex and high-profile cases. He had a wife and 2 kids, but he rarely saw them. He was always on the phone, on the laptop, or on the road. He felt like he was losing touch with his family and himself. One day, he decided to take a break from his hectic routine and booked a room at a hotel near the beach. He wanted to relax, enjoy the sun and the waves, and maybe reconnect with his wife. He packed his bags and left a note for his family, saying he would be back in a few days. He checked into the hotel and was given a room on the third floor. The room was spacious and comfortable, with a king-size bed, a sofa, a TV, and a balcony overlooking the ocean. David felt a wave of relief wash over him as he unpacked his suitcase. He changed into his swimwear and headed to the beach. He spent the afternoon swimming, sunbathing, and reading a book. He felt more relaxed than he had in years. He smiled at the other guests and chatted with some of them. He even met a nice couple who invited him to join them for dinner at the hotel restaurant. David accepted their offer and went back to his room to shower and change. He put on a casual shirt and pants and grabbed his wallet and phone. He was about to leave his room when he heard a strange sound behind the wall. It sounded like someone was drilling or hammering something. David frowned and wondered what was going on. He walked over to the wall and pressed his ear against it. He heard voices on the other side. They were muffled, but he could make out some words. Almost there. Hurry up. Don't make too much noise. David realized that someone was breaking into his room through the adjoining room. He felt a surge of fear and anger. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911. He whispered his name, location, and situation to the operator. Please stay calm, sir. We're sending officers to your location right away. Don't confront the intruders. Just lock your door and stay away from the wall. David did as he was told. He locked his door and moved to the opposite side of the room. He heard the sound of wood cracking and metal clanging as the intruders broke through the wall. He saw 3 men emerge from the hole in the wall. They were wearing masks, gloves, and dark clothes. They had guns in their hands. They saw David and pointed their guns at him. Don't move. Don't scream. Give us your money and valuables. David raised his hands in surrender. Please don't shoot. I have money in my wallet. Take it. Take anything you want. One of the intruders approached David and snatched his wallet from his pocket. He opened it and saw several $100 bills inside. Nice. This is what we're looking for. He tossed the wallet to another intruder, who stuffed it into his backpack. What about your phone? Give it to me. David handed over his phone. Good boy. Now sit down on the sofa and don't move. David obeyed and sat down on the sofa. The intruders searched the room for more valuables. They found David's laptop, watch, jewelry, and some clothes. They threw them into their backpacks. They were about to leave when they heard a loud banging on the door. Police. Open up. We have the place surrounded. The intruders looked at each other in panic. They knew they had been caught. They rushed to the hole in the wall and tried to escape, but the police had already blocked their way. The police barged into the room and arrested the 3 criminals. They searched their bags and found the stolen items. They also found tools and weapons that linked them to other robberies in the area. David was relieved and grateful. He thanked the police and the operator for their quick response and professional handling of the situation. He also called his family and told them what had happened. They were shocked but relieved that he was safe. David left the hotel the next day. He knew that life would still be busy and stressful, but he also knew that he had the power to make it meaningful and fulfilling. In the year 2021 in New York City, a young man named Ethan was looking for some Friday night entertainment. He decided to go to a bar near his apartment, hoping to meet someone interesting. He was bored with his job as an accountant and wanted to diversify his life. He had no idea what was waiting for him. At the bar, he noticed a beautiful girl sitting alone at a corner table. She had long blonde hair and blue eyes, and she was dressed in a red dress that tightened her curves. Ethan felt a rush of attraction and decided to approach her. He introduced himself and offered to buy her a drink. She smiled and agreed. Her name was Ashley, and she said she had recently come to town. She had just moved from California to pursue her dream of becoming an actress. Ethan was impressed by her ambition and charm. They chatted for a while, and Ethan felt a connection with her. He asked her if she wanted to go to his party. She agreed and said she would meet him there in half an hour. She gave him her address and phone number, and he left the bar feeling excited. Ethan hurried to his room in a small hotel that was only a few blocks from the bar. He quickly tidied up his room and turned on some music. He texted Ashley to confirm that he was ready to meet her. She replied that she was on her way and would be here soon. Ethan waited impatiently, checking his phone every few seconds. He couldn't wait to see her again. About 20 minutes later, he heard a knock on the door. He eagerly opened it, expecting to see Ashley's smiling face. Instead, he saw a tall man with a shaved head and a tattoo on his neck. He was dressed in a leather jacket and jeans, and he had a menacing expression on his face. Before Ethan could say anything, the man pushed him inside and slammed the door behind him. He punched Ethan in the stomach with his fist, causing him to fall to the floor. He kicked him several times, shouting obscenities. He said he was Ashley's boyfriend and that he had set the trap to rob him. He demanded Ethan's wallet, phone, and keys. Ethan tried to resist, but his strength and fury were no match for the man's strength and fury. He felt blood dripping from his nose and mouth and feared for his life. The man searched Ethan's pockets and took everything he had. He also took Ethan's laptop and television from the living room. He said he would kill Ethan if he saw him again or reported him to the police. He warned him not to tell anyone about what had happened, or else he would come after him. With that, the man left the room, slamming the door behind him. Ethan lay on the floor in excruciating pain for what seemed like an eternity. He was bruised, and he could barely move. He realized that he had been a victim of a trap set by a criminal gang. He regretted his decision to go to the bar and meet a stranger. He wished he had stayed home and watched a movie instead. He wondered how he could get out of this mess and who he could turn to for help. Eventually, Ethan managed to crawl to his phone and call the police. He reported the robbery and assault and gave them a description of the assailant. The police arrived at the scene within minutes and took Ethan to the hospital for treatment. They also launched an investigation into the crime and tried to track down the suspects. However, it faced many challenges, as the gang was notorious for its criminal activities and had connections with powerful people in the city. Ethan spent several days in the hospital, recovering from his injuries and trauma. He felt lucky to be alive, but also felt angry and violated. He realized that he had taken his safety for granted, and that he had to be more careful in the future. He decided to quit his job and move to a new city, where he could start over and forget about his past. He also promised himself never to trust a stranger again, and to rely only on his instincts and judgment. In 2023 in New York City, a young woman named Emmy was staying at a luxury hotel for a business trip. She was a successful lawyer who had just won a big case for her firm. She was feeling proud and confident as she walked into the lobby, wearing a stylish suit and carrying a briefcase. She noticed a handsome man in a suit sitting at the bar, sipping a drink. He had dark hair, blue eyes, and a charming smile. He looked up and met her gaze, and she felt a spark of attraction. He smiled and waved at her, inviting her to join him. She hesitated for a moment, but then decided to go over and talk to him. She thought he might be another guest or a business traveler like her. "Hi, I'm Ryan," he said as she approached him. "Can I buy you a drink?" "Sure, why not?" she said. "I'm Amy." They exchanged some small talk and flirted with each other. Ryan seemed to be interested in her and asked her about her work, her hobbies, and her plans for the night. He told her that he was an investor who was in town for a meeting. He said he was staying at the same hotel as her and asked her what room she was in. "I'm in room 512, she said. "Wow, what a coincidence," he said. "I'm in room 514. He leaned closer to her and whispered in her ear, "You know, I find you very attractive. How about we go upstairs and have some fun?" Amy felt a rush of excitement and curiosity. She had never done anything like this before, but she was feeling adventurous and lonely. She had been single for a while and hadn't had much time for dating. She thought Ryan was handsome and charming, and she wanted to have some fun with him. "Oh," she said, "let's go." They finished their drinks and walked to the elevator. Ryan held her hand and kissed her softly on the lips. She kissed him back and wrapped her arms around his neck. They got into the elevator and pressed the button for the 5th floor. They got out of the elevator and walked to Ryan's room. He opened the door with his key card and led her inside. As soon as they entered, 2 men jumped out from behind the curtains and grabbed Amy. They threw her on the bed and pinned her down. One of them had a knife and the other had a gun. They demanded that she give them all her valuables and money. Amy was terrified and trying to fight back, but they were too strong for her. They attacked her, beat her, and robbed her of her jewelry, cash, and credit cards. They left her lying on the bed, bleeding and bruised. Amy managed to crawl to the phone and call for help. The hotel staff called an ambulance, and she was taken to the hospital. She had suffered a fracture in her arm and several cuts and bruises on her face and body. She was in shock and traumatized by the attack. The police were called, and they began an investigation. Amy gave them a detailed description of the 2 men and their accomplice, Ryan. She told them how she had met Ryan at the hotel bar and how he had invited her to his room. She suspected that he was working with the criminals to set her up. The police launched a manhunt for the criminals and Ryan. They tracked down Ryan's phone and found out that he had left the hotel immediately after the attack. They also found CCTV footage of the 2 men leaving the hotel with Amy's belongings. Eventually, the criminals were caught and brought to trial. Amy testified against them, and they were convicted of assault and robbery. Ryan was also arrested and charged with conspiracy and aiding and abetting the criminals. He denied any involvement in the attack, but was found guilty based on the evidence. Amy's life was changed forever by the attack. She had to undergo surgery and physical therapy to recover from her injuries. She also suffered from PTSD and anxiety for a long time. However, she was grateful for the support of her family and friends and for the justice that was served. In the year 2021, there was a young man named Alex who was working as a software engineer for a large technology company in the city of Seattle. He was sent to Seattle for a week to attend a conference and meet with a few clients. He booked a room at a fancy hotel near the convention center, hoping to enjoy his stay and explore the city. On the 2nd day of his trip, he returned to his room after a long day of meetings and presentations. He was shocked to find his room a mess and his clothes, laptop, and suitcase scattered all over the floor. He quickly checked his belongings and realized that some valuable items were missing, including his wallet, passport, and phone. He panicked and ran to the front desk to report the theft. The manager apologized and showed him the security camera footage from his room. It showed him that someone wearing a mask and gloves had entered his room with a master key and left with his belongings through the window. The manager said that they had already called the police and that they would do everything they could to help him. Alex felt angry and offended. He had no idea who might have done this or why. He wondered if it was someone from the conference who wanted to disrupt his work or steal his identity. He was also worried about how he would get home without his papers and money. He asked the manager if he could stay in another room until the police arrived. The manager agreed and gave him a new key card. He also offered him a free breakfast and a free room upgrade for the inconvenience. Alex thanked him and went to his new room. It was on the same floor, but on the opposite side of the building. Alex hoped it would be safer and more comfortable than his previous room. He closed the door behind him and tried to relax on the bed. He turned on the television and watched the news to distract himself from his problems. After a while he fell asleep, hoping that tomorrow would be a better day. The next day he woke up early and went downstairs for breakfast. He met with the police officer, who asked him some questions about what had happened. The officer said that they were still investigating the case and that they had no suspects yet. He advised Alex to contact his bank and embassy to cancel his cards and request new documents. He also gave him the case number and a phone number to call if he had any news or questions. Alex thanked him and went back to his room. He used the hotel phone to call his bank and the embassy. He explained what had happened and asked them to help him. They told him they would send him new cards and documents as soon as possible, but it might take a few days. They also advised him to be careful while he was in Seattle. Alex felt frustrated and helpless. He would have liked to go home right away, but he had 2 more days to attend the conference. He decided to make the most of it and try to focus on his work. Alex got dressed and grabbed his laptop bag. He checked out at his room and left his key card at the front desk. Alex told the manager that he would be back in the evening and asked him to keep an eye on his room. He made his way to the conference center and joined his fellow conference attendees. He tried to act normal and professional, but he couldn't shake off his feelings of anxiety and paranoia. Alex was constantly looking over his shoulder, wondering if someone was following him or stalking him. He also checked his laptop often, making sure that it was still working and that no one was interfering with his work. He managed to get through the day without any major problems or incidents. He learned some new things, met some interesting people, and even got some positive feedback from his clients. By the end of the day, he felt more optimistic and hopeful. He returned to the hotel around 6 o'clock in the evening. He was tired, but hungry at the same time, so he decided to order room service before he went to bed. He entered the elevator and pressed his floor button. As Alex waited for the doors to open, he noticed a familiar face in the elevator mirror. It was the masked man who had robbed him 2 days earlier. Recognizing him, Alex felt a rush of fear and anger. The man was wearing different clothes, but he was wearing the same mask and gloves. He had a backpack hanging on his shoulder, which Alex assumed contained his stolen goods. The man also seemed surprised to see Alex. He quickly reached into his pocket for something, probably a weapon or a tool. Alex reacted instinctively and lunged at him, trying to keep him from hurting him or running away. The 2 men struggled in the small space of the elevator, pushing and shoving each other. Alex managed to grab the man's backpack and pull it off his shoulder, causing the man to stumble and lose his balance. With a quick move, Alex managed to push the emergency button on the elevator, which made it stop between floors. The man tried to escape, but Alex blocked his way and demanded that he return his stolen belongings. The man became agitated and started to threaten Alex, but he remained cool and firm. He knew he had to keep the man in the elevator until help arrived. After a few tense minutes, the elevator doors opened, and 2 hotel security guards rushed in. They managed to subdue the man and handcuffed him. When the police arrived, they searched the man's backpack and found Alex's stolen items, along with several other stolen items from other hotel guests. It turned out that the man had a criminal record and had been caught breaking into another room in the same hotel just a couple of days ago. He had been released on bail and had returned to the hotel to continue his thieving spree. Thanks to Alex's quick thinking and bravery, the police were able to apprehend the thief and recover his stolen items. Alex felt relieved and grateful that justice had been served. In 2019, in the Belarus, there was a hotel called Hotel Europa. It was a modern and luxurious hotel that attracted many tourists and business travelers. One of the guests was Vladimir, a journalist who was working on an investigative report about corruption in the local government. He had checked into the hotel 2 days ago and was staying in room 112. On his third night at the hotel, he heard a knock on his door around 10 p.m. He opened it and saw a man wearing a black uniform and a badge that said Hotel Security. The man smiled and said, "Good evening, sir. I'm sorry to bother you, but we are doing a routine check on the room security. May I come in for a minute?" Alexei felt suspicious. He had not seen this man before, and he did not look like a typical security guard. He also wondered why they would do a security check at this hour. He decided to be cautious and said, "Actually, I'm busy right now. Can you come back later?" The man frowned and said, "Sir, this is very important. We have received some reports of suspicious activity in this area, and we need to make sure your room is safe. It will only take a few seconds." Alexei was not convinced. He thought that maybe this was a trap set by someone who wanted to stop his investigation or steal his documents. He decided to call the front desk and ask them if they had sent the security guard. He said, "Oh, just wait here for a moment." He closed the door slightly and picked up the phone. He dialed the number of the front desk and asked, "Hello, this is Alexei Petrov from room 112. I have a man claiming to be a security guard outside my door. He says he wants to check on my room security. Is this true?" The receptionist sounded surprised and said, "No, sir. We don't have any security guard by that name or description, and we don't do any security checks at night. This sounds very strange. Please do not let him in your room. We will send someone to help you right away." Alexei thanked her and hung up the phone. He realized that he was in danger and that he had to act fast. He grabbed his laptop and his documents and put them in his backpack. He also took his phone and his wallet. He was about to open the door and run away when he heard a loud bang. The man had kicked the door open and entered the room with a knife in his hand. He shouted, "You think you're smart, huh? You think you can expose our secrets? You're dead wrong." He lunged at Vladimir with the knife, but Vladimir dodged him and hit him with his backpack. The man stumbled and dropped the knife. Alexei picked it up and tried to stab him, but the man blocked him with his arm. They struggled for a few seconds until they heard another knock on the door. It was the hotel staff who had come to help. They had heard the commotion and rushed to room 112. They saw the man with the knife and quickly subdued him. One of them called the police while the others comforted Alexei. The police arrived within minutes and arrested the man. They found out that he was not a hotel employee, but hired thug who had been sent to intimidate or kill Alexei. He had a criminal record and was charged with attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Thanks to the quick action of the hotel staff and the police, Alexei was safe and the culprit was caught. He continued his investigation and published a groundbreaking report that exposed the corruption in the local government. His report led to the resignation of several officials and a major reform of the system. In 2014, in a small town in Scotland, a young man named Liam was travelling for work. He booked a room at a cozy hotel near the train station, hoping to get some rest before an important meeting the next day. He checked in at the front desk and was given a key card for room 207. He took the elevator to the second floor and entered his room. The room was spacious and comfortable, with a double bed, dresser, TV, desk, and sofa. The bathroom was clean and well stocked with toiletries. Liam was pleased with his choice and decided to take a shower before going to bed. He unpacked his suitcase and put his clothes in the dresser. He set his laptop on the table and plugged it in. He hung his coat on the coat rack by the door and left his shoes on the floor. He made his way to the bathroom and turned on the shower. He enjoyed the hot water and relaxed his muscles. He wiped himself with a fluffy towel and put on his pajamas. Liam brushed his teeth and brushed his hair. He felt sleepy and ready for bed. He turned off the bathroom light and returned to the main room. He was shocked by what he saw. His things were scattered all over the place. His laptop was on the couch, his coat was on the bed, his shoes were on the dresser, and his clothes were scattered on the floor. He felt a rush of fear and anger. Who had been in his room? How had they entered? What did they want? He looked around for signs of theft or damage, but everything seemed untouched. Liam grabbed his phone and called the front desk. He told them what had happened and asked them to send someone upstairs immediately. He also asked to check the security cameras and find out who had entered his room. Liam waited nervously for someone to arrive, wondering if the intruder was nearby. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Liam cautiously opened it and saw two hotel employees, a man and a woman, holding a clipboard and a walkie-talkie. They introduced themselves as John and Mary, the manager and the security guard. They apologized for the inconvenience and asked him to explain what had happened. Liam repeated his story and showed them how his belongings had been moved. John nodded sympathetically and said he had checked the security tapes. He said he saw a strange man enter Liam's room around 10 p.m. using a key card. The man had been in the room for about 3 hours, rearranging things haphazardly. He also stared at Liam for a long time as he slept, which was very creepy. Mary said she recognized the man in the video. According to her, it was a former hotel employee who had been fired months earlier for stealing from guests. He had a nervous breakdown and mental health problems, she said. She said he had been arrested by the police and taken away. Liam was relieved that the man had been caught, but at the same time concerned about what he had done. He thanked John and Mary for their help and asked if he could change rooms. They agreed and offered to change him to a suite on the top floor. They helped him pack his things and escorted him to his new room. Liam checked into his new room, which was much nicer than his previous room. It had a balcony overlooking the city, a fireplace, a minibar, and a jacuzzi tub. John and Mary apologized again for what had happened and assured him that he would be safe in this room. They gave him their contact numbers in case he needed anything else. Liam thanked them again and closed the door behind them. He'd felt exhausted by this ordeal and decided to go to bed as soon as possible. He hoped he could get a good night's sleep and forget about what had happened. He set his alarm clock for 7 a.m., turned off the light and crawled into bed. He closed his eyes and tried to calm his mind. He didn't notice anyone watching him from behind the curtains. My opinion, all of these stories are indeed frightening, especially the last one. But many of them, and similar stories, were caused by guests, such as how in one story a woman went to a room of a man she didn't know, and in another story a man didn't close the door carefully and criminals snuck into his room. Always have to be more careful in new places so a story with you doesn't end up in a video to my channel. Thank you all for watching.